Here at Compton Verney, we're absolutely delighted to have secured this fantastic loan from the Royal Collection. This marvellous picture by Anthony Van Dyck of King Charles I in three positions of 1635. It's incredibly important, just really as an artwork in its own right, one of the most important pictures in the Royal Collection, and we're indebted to Her Majesty the Queen for loaning it to us until September this year, so please do come and see it. This picture is very relevant to Compton Verney for two key reasons. It was the inspiration, indeed the aide-memoire, for the marvellous bust of King Charles I in the Compton Verney collection. And it's also very relevant to the English Civil War that was about to break out just a few years after this painting was made. And of course, here at Compton Verney, we're really near the Battle of Edge Hill, the first battle of the Civil War in 1642. The reason this portrait was painted was really to act as a guide for the great sculptor Gian Lorenzo Bernini, who both King Charles and his very dominant French Catholic wife, Henrietta Maria, wanted to portray Charles. The political problem was that Bernini was the Pope's sculptor, and of course Britain was then very firmly Protestant, and this seemed to exacerbate worries that, well, Charles's court was leaning towards Catholicism. He was trying to bring back the Catholic faith by the back door. Having the Pope's personal sculptor portray Charles was perhaps just, pouring oil onto an already difficult and troubled situation. Nevertheless, Charles went ahead. It was pointed out that Bernini couldn't actually leave Rome physically, but nevertheless, Henrietta Maria's agents got Bernini to agree to portray Charles by this bust. The solution reached was that the great court painter, Sir Anthony Van Dyck, would paint a view of Charles which would be sent to Bernini in Rome so he could create his bust. That was duly done and it was sent back. The original bust, however, only lasted, well, barely 60 years. In 1698, most of the great royal palace of Whitehall was burned to the ground and the bust was lost in the fire. Fortunately, in the 1670s, a very talented young English sculptor, John Bushnell, had made a replica. Bushnell had studied with Bernini, he'd been to Rome, he knew Bernini well, he knew his work well. Bushnell created a copy which we have now in our collection, so it's marvellous that the surviving 1675 copy of Bernini's great original bust is now reunited with the painting that inspired it. Van Dyck himself died in 1641, a year before the Civil War broke out with the Battle of Edge Hill. In a way, it's perhaps fortunate that poor Van Dyck did die then. With the outbreak of the Civil War, the court was dispersed, the patronage in both art and architecture that people like Van Dyck and his architectural equivalent, Inigo Jones, had enjoyed, completely disappeared. Indeed, when King Charles is executed in 1649, he's deliberately made to walk through the windows of Inigo Jones's very Italian-looking banqueting house in Whitehall, almost as rubbing his nose in the fact that Charles and his court were perceived as leaning towards Italy, leaning towards Catholicism. It was a symbolic act to have him executed outside this what was seen as a very papist building at the time. We've also, of course, included in the display our marvellous Samuel Cooper miniature of Cromwell. What Cromwell was trying to do in the 1650s was get away from this superb, iconic portraiture and bring something that was a little more lifelike, a little less kingly. And of course, with our marvellous Cooper miniature, Cromwell's suggestion was that he be painted warts and all, and indeed he was. It's such a big contrast, the miniature, with this fabulous painting, where, with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we can read into Charles's face not just majesty, repose, patience, but also perhaps an air of melancholy and an air of doom, perhaps. Did Van Dyck foresee Charles's eventual fall and death? Please do come and see this lovely painting while we still have it, and we look forward very much to seeing you at Compton Verney soon.